Hello there. So I don't really have much of a plan for today. I'm going to be doing some pattern revisions and updates. I've got some pre-flat patterns here. There we go. Let's turn off my echo there. I'm going to be doing some pattern updates. I've got some pre-flats that I'm going to modify a little bit and turn them into projector-friendly files. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. I can stop and do some sewing. I can stop and show some knitting. I've got other camera angles and whatnot so we can change the view, but right now I just have my computer open on Adobe Illustrator and I have my old PDFs here and I am just going to play around with that for now. So I've got my screen shared, I've got chat open if anybody has questions, and let me know if you need to see something different or if something's not working. I have a little bit of background music now set up, but I'm not sure if I want to try playing it or not. I'm trying to figure out this whole streaming thing. It's a little slow, but we'll see what I can figure out for YouTube. I'm just using my webcam's mic right now though, because I don't want to wear the headset. But yeah, so let's get started. I have my Adobe Illustrator open. I have my new Word to Small pre-flat set up here. I can change the view a little bit so that I have both the view from, so I can look down at the screen. So internal, there we go. Okay, little bumps. We're figuring this out. So I can look down now. I have this set up as a path. I showed how I make my patterns in a previous video where I had a cutout pattern that I'd played around with on brown paper, just cut up in grocery bags. And then I traced it with the grid open. Now to turn it into a pattern, I use the path tool, but you can use other ones as well, just really tracing it. And then I have this sort of template that I made. And this initial template here, I did a folding template, but in order to make it for a projector, which is what we're going to be changing things to today, based on the request of a person that joined my Discord, I've been uploading projector files, and if anybody wants any other specific types of files, let me know. I can format them pretty much any way that anybody wants. And I'm always happy to do it. It's more just about people having to ask. I've always been happy to do that kind of thing. You just have to ask and make sure that I actually, see the question. And I'm hoping that the way that things are set up now, it's easier to have that kind of communication. With the Discord, you can leave messages and I'll always see them. I might not see them until the next day or whenever I log on, but they're always going to be there. And we can go back and refer to old conversations, and there's voice chat and all that. A lot of people use it for gaming. But for this, I think it's a great collaborative community environment. So if people want to work together and problem solve, come up with ideas, if you have a pattern that you've tried, and even if it's not one of mine, and there's something about it you want to change, like if you want to have a bigger seam allowance, or if you want to have a different curve somewhere, or if like a dress you're sewing needs to have a bigger or smaller bust, then we can communicate there and we can play around and modify some patterns. So first in Illustrator, I'm going to go to my document setup and I'm going to choose my edit artboard, because for the projector patterns, there's not going to be a fold line. And I'm just going to extend my little border there, make this a bigger file. And I've never used a projector, so from my understanding, it's just, you make it scaled to the size of your little key, your size key. So it doesn't really matter how big I make it as long as it's scalable. And for one that I've already made here, it's my old OS square tab pattern. And I put a watermark layer and a grid layer, which has the key in it, and then the diaper layer. And I just took my old diaper patterns and I made them fairly consistent. I think I need to go through and make some of the sewing lines a little more consistent, but for now, this is, good enough. They're always a one-click edit. So if there's an old pattern that you just don't like something about it, and it really is as simple as just one click and change, don't be afraid to ask. I can change colors, I can change line thicknesses if they're not convenient. I made all those patterns so long ago, and it's really just a lot easier than people think to just make little changes. They're all vector files. They don't need to be repainted or selected. They are literally click and fix. So I have this one here that I'm using to steal the grid off of and steal the watermarks off of. And so I'm going to take my new Word and Small preflat that I'm working on, and I'm going to select the parts that need to be duplicated for the other side. And I can right now change the border thicknesses if I want. I was doing 3-point for the old stuff. Yes, I can for sure add markers. When I resegment the projector patterns, like I'm going to use the projector patterns as my base, which is why I'm doing them first. And then when I resegment, I'm going to add those little triangle diamond markers like I've been adding to the newest patterns, and I can add those into the old ones. I don't edit the old files because they're already rasterized. And the reason why I rasterize them is so that people don't steal them, because I have a lot had my files turn up in other people's sold patterns where it is clearly my exact pattern that they took if I had put the PDF at one point and it was editable, not just a graphic, and they've just said it's theirs and they're selling it. So now while I keep the editable files, the files that I'm putting up online from now on are only going to be flattened, and they're going to have watermarks on them. Not because I really want, I mean, people can sell from my patterns, but I don't want people selling the patterns themselves. So yeah, all the future ones over the next, I did these ones in like 3 or 4 days. Over the next week or so, I'm going to be slowly going through and segmenting out and re-uploading all those old files. So they all will look more like the graphics that are in the projector files, but with the segmented little pieces, to show where they line up. So that will happen. It's just I can't do it right this minute because I'm doing them one at a time. But yeah, it could also be if you're not lining up properly when you cut them, it could be that you don't have your scaling set to manually be 100% on your printer, because it will print each page to scale it a little bit if you don't go and manually say don't scale or print 100%. That will also be an issue with lining things up. So that's one of the, even if your print square looks like what's 1 inch, the next page might be a little different, and different printer setups are actually what changes that. So some printers will do it that way, some printers will keep it consistent, and it's really impossible to troubleshoot that without having somebody who knows all your exact same setup, but it shouldn't be a problem. So yeah, so I'm going to take this current one, I'm going to change the border sizes to what I've been working with, which is 3 points now. I've been doing my fonts consistent now. They're now all, one font, one size, trying to make things a little more consistent across all the patterns. Back when I first made these, they were all by request from the Baby Center Cloth Diaper Sewing Board. So I was in that group, and I have a background in graphic design and technical design. I used to do wiring schematics for spaceships. But, it was just something that I knew how to do. So people asked for things, and I said, oh, I can do that. And I put them up. But they were all done over the course of years, over the course of various requests. And I never had a consistent, naming scheme for things or a consistent, font system that I was working. So my patterns are kind of all over the place. They're not real, they're not real organized. And I'd like to change that. I'd like to make them a little more organized, a little more consistent. Especially now that it's been like a decade. I mean, they're from 2000. I've got the folder they're in is called Patterns 2012, if that gives you an idea. So they've been around for a long time. So I'm trying to improve it here. And all these should be 1. They're all 1. They should all be the same size. They're all the same size. So at this point, I'm going to get rid of my fold line. And we're going to get rid of our numbers for this one. We'll add them in again when we do the segmenting. I hear my kids thumping around on the stairs outside. It's pretty funny. And get rid of this scale because I'm going to add a new scale. I don't know if it's good to have the booster on the same page or if I should put it on a different page. Suggestions are always desired. Like I said, I pretty much did the whole thing by request anyway, so you know, it's completely up to people what they want to see done. I'm going to take this, move this out of the way. If you're not familiar with Adobe Illustrator or with any of these graphics apps, you can see how easy it is for me to just select a field and, you know, do whatever I need to do with it. So like for now I've got a grid showing. I can go and I can snap to my grid, and then anything that I use the arrows for will just automatically line up. So it's really nice. Okay. And I'm going to temporarily lock this layer while I work on other stuff. Set up my artboard a little bit differently. I also am willing to do custom individual sewing lessons over Zoom or via live stream or however you want to do. God, my family's making so much noise. But yeah, really up to doing whatever. We're all pretty bored here, so COVID's been a great way to get my attention. I was thinking that I could probably make this easier to work with if we do something like a rounded inside. I don't like the pre-flats where they cut out that big section at the flap because it's a waste of fabric in my opinion. Like you're wasting fabric unless you have them exactly fitting into each other, which is, you know, an exercise in puzzles. But what you can do is kind of make a little circle at the end here and just widen it out. So if I was going to do that, I would probably just but something like that, like changing the curve to something like that would be a way of doing it, making it like a little opening, easier to serge around it. But I like working with dropping my knife and just sort of turning the fabric rather than, you know, having it all just go in one strip pass. So I actually did a video on that too, where I drew out the patterns. So it's yeah, it depends on what you're making. So for me, I'm able to just kind of look at something and figure it out. But when I was doing scaling, I did do vertical lines, sort of denoting the key points where things had to change in width. It's kind of an engineering thing. But for one thing is like if you have something that fits and just one thing of it doesn't fit, then you could sort of trace what you have or take a photo of it over your cutting mat grid and then just change the part that doesn't fit. So for diapers, newborns have teeny tiny legs but wider hips. So the curve from the hip through the stomach is going to be smaller. It's going to be wider through the middle, so like it's not just a scaled down larger size, it's actually like sort of more similar in the middle and less curves and sort of a more of a straight line through that part. So with diapers, there's kind of like pattern theory, I guess, that's involved when you just think about the shapes of kids. But no one thing is going to fit any person right, right? Like adults especially are in such different shapes and sizes that you kind of have to think about, well, how is that working, right? Like um does it need to be wider around the upper arm? Do you need to make a bigger armhole then? Do you need to drop it lower down on the bodice so that it matches? It's more about just gauging that sort of thing. But for a diaper cut, if you have the general outside shape, you just would then add on another, quarter to half inch for seam allowance if it's a turned diaper. And I showed how to do that in that one video. And then you would go in and add your elastic casing, another half inch in if you're using 3/8 inch elastic. You would, decide at what point your elastic should start around the leg. You don't want to be gathering it up, above that sort of hip line. So you want to stop there, and you don't want to be gathering it up at the front above a certain point because you don't want to be pulling in. You want it to be flat against the stomach. If you're adding, stomach elastic, that's a different thing entirely. So there's sort of common threads with it, but it really depends on what you're making. So it's not really a calculation as much as a fluidity. I mean, you could have a square pattern, but is it going to fit around the curves of an animal or of a baby or of a curtain that you're hanging over something? It's sort of an approximate thing, but you could definitely, the best way to get practiced at it is to look at garments or whatever you already have and lay them out. With pants, you fold them at the sort of the waist point in the middle from the crotch. You have like one leg flat, and I think I showed that on when I was making my both the doll clothes and with the snow pants that I made, where you kind of line up the fabric so that it's flat, so that you can see each piece that's already been sewed together, and just take a look at it. Look at something that's already been created and see what you want to change, what would make it fit you better or worse. Like for me, I've talked about before, I have really big shoulders and upper arms, and so clothes that fit most of me don't fit there. And so then you want to look at, well, why doesn't this shirt work, but then this shirt does? And you look at the differences between the two, and you can take part of that pattern and put it into the one that you're making. So if you like this element of one and this element of another, look at them side by side, see how they line up, and trace them both, and then overlap it and draw your new picture. It's really all it is. With the diapers, it's about newborns having wider hips, bigger waists, smaller legs. There's sort of stages in babies where they typically get thinner and thicker. So like you're getting up to the higher rise larges, they're not going to be equally wider than the mediums. They're going to be a similar width to the mediums compared to the smalls to the mediums, just because of how people typically grow. And with babies, there's always going to be exceptions, of course. Like there's going to be fatter babies and skinnier babies, which is why there's adjustability. But with adults and kids, those numbers get further and further apart, which is why it's so great to be able to customize patterns yourself. It's just one of those things where like even if so yeah, so what do you guys think? Do you think that having this little notch out at the inside of the curve here would make it easier for people to kind of visualize that they need to sew around that? Or do you think that having it the way that I had it in my fold and fitteds, where they kind of just look at my photo tutorial or however you want to do it and just drop their knife and go around it, themselves, is the same? I don't know if one way's easier or harder or better, but I was considering adding this little notch here just to make it more apparent. But I'm not sure. I'd love input. This is general, and I'm just gonna add in my watermarks now. I just made a little watermark. You'll see what it looks like when it pastes. I just have the layer transparency adjusted, and it's just a really big version of the logo that I made back when I was Fairy Fluff Mother. And then just scale. And I'll keep glancing up occasionally, but yeah. I tried to show it on my blog. I should probably do another photo pictorial that really zooms in on like how I go around that corner. It's not easy for me to capture it on video because I don't have like zoom lenses or good video equipment. I just have my son's old gaming webcam. Um, and it's not worth it for me to have a really great video setup for that kind of thing. But with photo tutorials, I can take a close-in photo, and I still just use my phone, but at least then I can crop it. So I can definitely go and sew up another surged, I'll do a flat tutorial after this, pre-flat tutorial, and I'll take some more detailed pictures around that part. I think is probably the best way to do it. But most people who do the videos or do the patterns just copy the pattern and don't actually look at the tutorials or the videos. So, and since I don't want to do a fully encased PDF that has everything included in it, because at that point I would sell it. I mean, honestly, if I was going to do a pattern that included the written directions, the techniques, the specific adjustment measurement directions, like the pattern that I pattern tested for did, at that point you're putting so much work into each pattern, and you're really producing like a publishable finished product. And at that point, you would want to sell it. You wouldn't want to just give that away because that is such a complete final product. The way that I did it before was having just the files for the templates up on my site, and then it kind of was all one stop shop. Like you just go there and get everything you need to get, as opposed to it being self-contained, if that makes sense. Like I didn't want to have everything be, I don't know, like so easy to access, if that makes any sense. Like I said, I've found my PDFs literally for sale. Somebody's packaged them with their own written directions and, claiming that they're theirs. They take out any signs that it's mine, and they sell it as their own pattern. So if I was going to make something completely complete, I just would worry that if I'm not going to sell it, somebody else is going to be selling it and making money off it. One lady was selling them for like $5 a pattern or something like that, and it's like, it's not like they're taking money out of my pocket, but it's also kind of like I wasn't trying to make them be able to make their living by downloading my files and then re-uploading them. The point is I wanted it to be free. The point is I wanted it to be accessible for everybody. But in order, in doing that, then it's like, go to the site and check out the tutorials. Also, my site has no ads or any monetization either. In fact, it's so old because it's before Google owned Blogger and Blogspot that it's so old that it can't be monetized. Like I went and tried to see if I could turn on AdSense and it couldn't because it's so old. I think it looks better there. I think that looks nice. That's consistent with the others. So save that one again and work on the next one. So then I've got the medium to large here, the same thing. Turn my borders to the same width. But yeah, originally they were all done at different times, some of them years apart from each other, and they just weren't consistent because of it. I was using whatever font was already open on the computer, whatever line width. I didn't have any sort of branding guidelines. I know that with graphic design you always kind of have your branding guidelines that you give to your clients. Like they always have to use this font at this size in this sort of document. I really should make something like that for myself so that I remember. Do you do those kinds of things? It's already grouped. No. Okay. Group. get my artboard. I think that's enough. Oh, actually. I don't know. I mean, when we were kids, they said it was going to change. They keep telling our kids it's going to change. It's all a lie. I don't expect anything to ever change. Lines up nice. I think that's good size. So my husband got me this drawing tablet for Christmas. I think he got it like, we ordered it at Christmas and I got it later. But it's really cool. And I haven't used it for much. Isn't that really cool? It is a monitor and a tablet. So like you plug it in and it's just plug and play. Like you literally just plug it in and you push the power button and it exactly mirrors, it's monitor, mirror, repeater, whatever. And you can just draw straight on it with the stylus, which also is no batteries and no cords. And it is so cool, but I don't know what to draw yet. Like I worked on my little background graphic on my YouTube banner with it, but I haven't drawn a lot lately. I can draw. I used to do computer illustration and graphic design and stuff, but I don't know what to make with it. So it's here. You can play with it. I'd love to make something with it with the whole, ArfyMakes thing, but I don't know what to make yet. So if anybody has any graphics they want to make, or if anybody has a storefront, if you have a cloth diaper shop and you want to sell from my patterns and you need help with a logo, I used to do, that's another thing I used to do. I used to do branding for the other cloth diaper work at home moms, WAMs, on the cloth diaper sewing board. So I have these folders of all these old like names of people's Etsy and hyena cart shops and stuff, and I did all their logos and all of their like buttons and business cards and labels. I think I still have some of my old labels. I don't have business cards anymore, but like my little old label here. But I did all that, and I know how to do all the outputs because I used to actually work in design, so I can do all the Pantone versus, vector graphics, whatever you need. So I'd love to do that kind of stuff too. So like if people want to come to my Discord and want to sort of collaborate on graphics work, I'm happy to do it. And like I said, I don't. Yeah, I think that works. think that's good. And then watermarks. Yeah, gosh, when I first started sewing diapers, it was really random. I think I joined the cloth diapering board, and then there was a link on the side to the cloth diaper sewing board, and I already knew how to sew, but I didn't have a sewing machine, I think, yet at the time. So I think I got one for Mother's Day that year. I used to have a sewing machine. I used to teach sewing lessons when I was a teenager. I worked at a sew and back, and I taught sewing lessons. And so my husband got me my first sewing machine after getting married because I didn't have one in college and in my young adulthood. And I started sewing a little bit, but I didn't use any patterns because I'm like that. And sort of modified things. And I didn't think of making digital patterns until somebody went on one of those boards and asked for a very specific custom diaper. Like they wanted something that had very specific length wings and very specific rise and very specific shape. They had kind of a sketch that they were using, and they wanted to make something to make a acrylic pattern cut out of. Like they were sewing their own for their shop, and they already had their pattern right, but they needed a digital one to make their acrylic pattern or whatever. And that's when I started doing it. And so I made her herd pattern, and then I started making them for everybody else. So that's how I got started. I think it was. I mean, I was already sewing when my son was little, but I don't think I started doing the patterns until my daughter was born. I started doing the digital patterns for her, and then also the knitting stuff. I think when she was about 3 or 4 months old. I think so. I think I bought all of her initial cloth diapers, and it was when she was around 3 or 4 months old that I started doing it. So it's been like 11 and a half years now. So not that long ago. But I already had done other types of stuff. I hadn't done digital patterns, but I'd done like paper patterns for like other sewing. Like I'd made a custom. So I had a friend who was an aerialist, and I made her a performance outfit. You know, I'd done like custom seamstress work, and I'd done cosplay costumes. And back when I was young, it wasn't called cosplay. It was, people just dressed up. It was costumes for like cons or for LARPing. And yes, I knew LARPers because yeah. But nowadays there's all the RP, like streaming games and stuff. It's so fun to watch. It's like I knew those people. They were such. But I had friends in the gaming society at college and stuff, and I had friends who went to early cons, and I actually worked at a security con to pay for it. Like I worked in order to get the pass and in order to get room and board and food, but like no actual paycheck. So I'd worked cons and stuff before like the world was the way the world is now. Things are so much cooler now. When I was a kid, that wasn't considered cool. I think that looks good. Okay, so I think that that's what I was going to work on today. I need to do my segmenting out of my patterns, and I need to still do quite a few patterns. So let me take a look and see which ones are still there. I'm just checking out my blog right now to see what I've done and what I haven't done. I still need to do. I'm not going to do the newborn small surged all in two. That was a real specific request thing. I need to do my contour soakers and my OS soakers. I need to do the G diaper style. I need to do. Should I do the mock grow baby or should I not bother with that one? That one's pretty convoluted. Like it's a lot of pieces sectioned together. So I don't know if that's worthwhile. It's definitely like it would be a big cutting thing. It would be either multiple projector files or one that's really big and then you can move it around. I'm not sure if that one's worthwhile. I have to do. I don't want to do the pull-ups because I only ever got to try them on one build of child and I'm not confident in them. I could probably do the preemie diapers, but they don't really need. They're so small. I think I have almost everything else. I don't have the multi-wing fitted. I need to do that. So I need to do the multi-wing fitted. I need to do the soakers. I'm not sure yet on the Mock Grow Baby. I could do the G diaper. Almost everything else is up now, isn't it? And I can start doing kids' clothing too. I have a few that I have on paper. Like I have a few. Here, let me switch views. Since I'm done with Illustrator right now. Everything kind of goes in cycles. There was definitely a time when it was trendy to have pre-flats when my kids were little for only a few months. There was a time when people were trying to like use only one diaper for all sizes, where it's like a true OS. That was definitely a thing that people were doing for a while. There was tutorials on how to use one size pre-fold for all sizes of babies, and I did like a photo tutorial of like different folds to work better with different builds. I was always a two pre-fold size kind of person. I never understood the 5 sizes of pre-folds. I had infant and I had premium, and kind of like the 2 sizes of. That's kind of how I started doing my 2 sizes of diapers. Like OS is never going to fit the littlest babies, but you need something that fits all the way between like the smallest newborns and that typical kind of 12-pound size small. And while size small fits some babies at 10 pounds, it doesn't fit all babies at 10 pounds. So, but yeah, anytime. And if you have any friends who have any questions or you want to work on garment sewing or accessory sewing or my weird way that I taught myself how to knit when I was a kid, I can also do drawing, illustration, graphic design. Yeah, all sorts of things. We can figure something out. I like I said, ArfyMakes. I like to make things. I like doing mask work too. I did mask work in theater in college. I like doing wig work. Yeah, crafts. I like crafts. Crafts are fun. Take care.